This story contains fantasy violence. And worms do not destroy. Part 2. The Volpa.
The eyes in the forest blinked. "You shouldn't have killed that man," grumbled Yoff. "Which one?" grinned Wedit. He smacked his lips and took another voracious bite from a glistening shank. He chewed with vigor. The brothers paid no mind to the raccoons surrounding them as the fire pit flicked specks of gold high into the air. "I cannot prevent you," Yoff said, "if you choose to abandon your family." "Oh, dear Jiva, are you still thinking about that? If you force their names upon me, I will take them with grace into my household. Yes, I will raise your boy as my own." Wedit wiped his teeth with a finger. "My boy will be fine." He kept eating. "You have not even named him. When we left, he approached his 4th year. He can choose his own name when he's ready," said Wedit. He curled his tongue around a knuckle of bone and bit the gristle. "You are his father," Yoff implored. Wedit looked up from his meal. "He will be his own man." He licked his fingers clean. "He's only seen a few moons, and yet he knows, like his stout-hearted father, the axe and not the bow is the true tongue of the Sephiroth." He examined the meat and bone in the flicker of light before continuing. Wedit seemed to consider his food and his brother with equal weight. "And when that tongue speaks, souls are shattered, Wedit shoved the bone back into his mouth and scraped the last of its meat off with his teeth. He reached over for a flagon and threw it back, letting a wash of brew soak through his beard and streak his chin. The amber drink rolled down his neck. Wedit rose up from the fire. He stepped back and raised his axe. Yoff knew what his brother was about to do. He looked the other way, out into the surrounding forest, not eager to be Wedit's captive audience. The axe-wielding Newell-born executed his favorite battle form, shouting into the night. He spun his body in the well-known pattern, and his blade sliced the air in wide, vicious arcs. Yoff reached forward and cut off another piece of the boar. As one of the moons ventured a glance from beneath its quilt of clouds. For a moment, the brother's skin shaded a pale blue. "I was thinking," said Yoff. "Ura preserve us," said Wedit, still swinging. "Some of those Ged-dwellers you killed, they could have been the king's men." "That lot?" snorted Wedit. "Absurd. Those Dal cops were all thieves." "Are you certain? The king won't grant our request if our names drip with a flow of murder." Wedit plunged the axe deep into the ground, spraying a clump of dirt and several worms into the fire. They sizzled. "Oh," Wedit asked, "have you done murder?" knowing full well the answer. He stood fixed in the night, taking a full, rich breath and lifting his great chest. After a long exhale, He rubbed his forearms for warmth and sat again before the fire. I don't recall your arrows hitting their targets, he seethed. Yolf eyed his brother warily. In fact, continued Wedit, I don't recall your arrows even leaving their quiver. He looked up from the fire and grinned. I had an arrow knocked, Wedit, said Yolf. Knocked and ready. Ha! Have no fear, brother. I will speak to the king on your behalf. We will both serve him in glory. Me? No, I cannot be called. I do not possess what is worthy. Of course you do. You never doubt, Wedit? Because I do. How can you be certain you'll not lose sight of what is right and slip away into nothing? That will never happen. Yolf squared his shoulders. Killers, Wedit. We're killers. You, me. The king does not honor killers. The fire crackled. Wedit stood once more. He canted his head. His wide shoulders shadowed Yolf, despite the fire. As old as you are, why haven't you left our mother's teat? Wedit, Yolf scolded. It is true. You have yet to be weaned from the thoughts of a child. Who do you think protects these borders, Killers. And who kept the desert horde at bay? Was killers stopped that invasion? Eh? Killers? Wedit gesticulated wildly. His dangling beard swayed between his open neck and the hungry flames. The king loves killers. He's got a whole army of them. They march where the sun goes down and kill in his good name. And through them, and them alone, is our preservation, because they do what must be done. Wedit brought his voice to a hush. The king wants blood, Yolf. Oh. Yes, do not shy away. He wants it. Blood. Some to frighten, some to honor. He shall have it, and I shall give it to him. Yolf shook his head. He looked away. He could not hold his brother's powerful stare. The lingering silence padded the tension between them. You'll see, said Wedit, and when we stand before his throne, I'll expect an apology. He grinned again. You cannot know the mind of the king, cautioned Yolf, staring again into the night. So you give him your own. He looked back at his brother. You make your desire his. The flames rose up and hid their eyes from one another. Wedit snagged another bone off the spit. He licked it once and tossed it over his shoulder. A scurry of tiny feet brushed to claim their gift. She giggled, but only to hide her anger.
You expect me to accept this?
She asked.
This, what do you call it?
Payment? What it suggested?
Payment.
Azara repeated. She tilted her hips. She batted her lashes. She pursed her lips. Azara weighed the jewelry in a loose and skeptical grip. The amethyst petals and the copper stems were cold against her probing thumb. It's not a mere acceptance I'm after. Wedit stepped forward and took Azara by her willowy waist. He cooed, "Consider this. I could have fled when your back was turned." He tried to kiss her neck, but she deftly dodged his advances. With a laugh, Azara replied,
You would not have gotten far.
She closed the statement with another laugh to clamp her sizzling rage inside. "No?" asked Wedit, showing his teeth. Azara wagged her head. She smiled. She wrapped her arms around Wedit's bulging neck. She tightened her muscles to sustain the gap between their bodies.
You would find my anger is fleet.
"Ah," answered Wedit, his eyes yet bright, for he mistook why she played this game.
Give me coin. You already drank the elixir.
"All I have is the brooch," said Wedit, shrugging. Azara pressed herself gradually into Wedit. The tense, delicate morning light colored the 3 silver barbs in her nose.
I do not want your offering.
She insisted, each word slow and stern.
I require coin. And it is coin you will give me.
Her half-lidded eyes drew Wedit toward an unexpected stupor. "I told you," he said, taking her hands, trying to match her gentle, unmoving power. "These are not the days for carrying coin on the King's Road. Take the brooch." Wedit moved to kiss her, and Azara caught his jaw with a firm hand. Wedit realized she was not breathing, but presumed she was holding her breath. Azara pushed Wedit back. Ugh. He nearly tripped over a plethora of exotic cushions. Wedit balanced his stance and gathered up his jerkin. Watching him, Azara laughed. She hid the brooch behind her, and with her other hand, Azara drew a needle from the back of her waistline. Wedit tensed. Wedit reached over. He picked up his axe. Azara squinted. Azara positioned the needle between 2 fingers and a thumb. Wedit counted the paces between him and Azara. They both smiled.
I cannot feed me and mine with such a bauble,
said Azara.
And my many tents need repair. And my many elixirs require replenishing. And my...
She stopped and grew quiet, looking him over.
Have you heard rumor of the nameless rider?
Nay.
It is said he too travels these lands, and he too follows no will but his own, caring not for the accepted way of things. Some call him enemy, others deliverer. I am reminded of him meeting you. Me? I name him Vagabond.
Then you see a false resemblance. I serve the blessed immortal king, answered Wedit. Not my will, no.
Oh, we all say that.
Grinned Azara.
For those words fill our ears like a thick molasses. Slow and rich and sweet smelling. A pleasant way to shut out any cry of suffering. Big or small, high or low, loud or quiet.
I put molasses on bread, said Wedit. Not in my ear. Azara laughed. She tilted her head at him. Then Wedit saw a vein twitch in Azara's neck. She grew angry.
Did you not take my elixir, the ambrosia of the Volpa, knowing you had no payment? Tell me, Newell born, do you break the law in service of your lord, believing the Volpa has no defense? Or is this transgression of my very life for some other reason?
She readied her needle. Wedit arched an eyebrow. He spoke firmly. I have given you payment. The brooch is my payment.
This?
Snarled Azara, crossing the space between them when Wedit blinked. She clutched the brooch before Wedit's nose. He heard it crack in her grasp.
This is unacceptable!
She seethed. Azara squeezed. The brooch turned to dust, escaping between her fingers like violet and brown sand. Wedit swallowed.
Now you shall truly pay.
Azara's other hand flicked the needle up to Wedit's neck. He kept still, but darted his eyes toward the needle and back again.
But not for the elixir.
Said Azara, her eyes locked to Wedit's. He noted her lips did not move, and he thought he had already been poisoned.
No, for the indignity of your barbarous embrace.
It was indeed the Volpa's voice, but the sound drifted from Wedit's left. Yet Azara still stood before him. The astonished Wedit turned his eyes. There stood another Azara. "There's two of you?" he blurted. This Azara brought her lips against Wedit's ear and growled.
One does not count the Volpa.
Azara's voice rapped behind Wedit, and he turned his eyes back to the right. Another Azara pushed her face into his. "Now 3? Wedit gasped. "How do you do this?"
Like so.
Shouted the Azara in the center, pushing him back. The cold needle at Wedit's neck rolled down, falling between the cushions, where it was lost in the dewy grass, hidden among a slop of worms. Azara pulled and melted in 2 directions. Face from face, arm from arm, hip from hip, leg from leg. One body begat another. The sound was not pleasant. "Oh," said Wedit. "That, well, I'm not sure what that is." 4 growling Azara closed in on Wedit. They said in unison,
You will not give, so we shall take.
Next time on Part 3, The Magnate.
They will bury me in a hole, and then cover me with jewels and silver, and, nay, a tomb. Yes, a tomb of splendor, and the very walls of that monument will shadow me for all eternity in riches. Oh, what bliss! Oh.
And Worms Do Not Destroy, starring Steve Rudolph as Wedit, Yoff, and the narrator, featuring Julia Eve as Azara the Volpa. Written and produced by William J. Meyer. Thanks for listening.